President? Oh, hello.
Mickey Mouse is the mouse that started an empire. A simple cartoon mouse that was created by Walt Disney and Iwerks rose to become perhaps the most famous and recognizable cartoon of all time, and the ambassador of everything Disney. Though the mouse was aimed towards children and is often associated with children's media, he still has a dark and controversial side, full of blackface and banned cartoons. Let's dive deep into this side, but before we begin, we'd like to request you to subscribe, as it would mean a lot to us to gain a new subscriber. Thank you! In 1928, Walt Disney was an up-and-coming cartoonist who worked for Universal Pictures. He had created a cartoon for them called Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. But in February of the same year, things changed for the worse. Charles Mintz, the middleman between Disney and Universal Pictures, gave Disney the horrible news that he was going to receive a pay cut, as most of his animators had left the Disney studio to go work for Mintz's studio, Winkler Pictures. Very few stayed back, and Disney was forced to come up with a new character to sustain his studio, as Universal owned Oswald. Iwerks began drawing cartoon characters of frogs, horses, and cows, but they were all rejected by Disney. There are a lot of urban legends as to how Mickey was invented. Some say he drew the initial designs for Mickey on the train ride back home after his meeting with Mintz. Another more popular one is that Disney was a starving artist working in the dirty Laugh-O-Gram studio in Kansas City. He had befriended a mild-mannered mouse, or a pair of mice depending on who you ask, and used to feed it stuff regularly. This mouse inspired him to draw a cartoon mouse. Iwerks workshopped it and made use of a lot of circles, like his iconic ears for example, to make him easier to animate. The result was Mortimer Mouse. Disney's wife Lillian hated the name and forced him to change it to Mickey. Actor Mickey Rooney also once claimed that he had met Disney at the Warner Brothers studios, which had inspired Disney to name the mouse after the actor. But if you ask us, the Lillian story holds more weight, as there's no proof of Disney ever being at Warner Brothers around that time. Mickey's first appearance was in May 1928 in a cartoon short called Plain Crazy. But audiences didn't like that one, and it wasn't picked up by any distributor. Disney didn't give up though, and produced two more shorts, The Gallopin' Gaucho and Steamboat Willie. Steamboat Willie was an instant success, and it's the reason Mickey grew to be the cultural icon he is today. A rarely known inspiration behind Mickey Mouse was minstrel shows, a type of theater in the early 1800s that had primarily white actors don blackface to perform various skits and musicals. The subject matter of all the shows were exaggerated and harmful racial stereotypes of African Americans. Even if you never heard of the minstrel shows, there's no way you're not familiar with a regular recurring character in the show called Jim Crow. The dim-witted dancing character became so popular that people began using it as a slur for African Americans, and segregation laws came to be called Jim Crow laws. Author Nicholas Salmond, in his 2015 book, Birth of an Industry, Blackface Minstrelsy and the Rise of American Animation, explains how early American cartoons were not just inspired by the minstrel shows, but were an extension of it. Mickey, especially with his white gloves and features, can be easily passed off as a minstrel. In Steamboat Willie, when Minnie's music book opens in front of the goat, the title of the song is called Turkey in the Straw. This folklore song, also called Zip Coon, was popularized by George Washington Dixon, a famous blackface performer. The most popular rendition of the song is a renamed version called The N-Word Love a Watermelon, Ha Ha Ha, which has been called the most racist song in America for its use of stereotypes. There can be no doubt that Disney picked this song by accident. Disney has been accused of being racist many times for the depiction of black people in his shorts and movies. One look at the movie Song of the South, which idealizes the lives of slaves, the female centaur in Fantasia, and the black bird in Who Killed a Cock Robin, should tell you that these are not accurate representations, nor are they fair to the community. The biggest example, however, is the 1933 Mickey Mouse short, Mickey's Melodrama. The plot revolves around Mickey Mouse and his attempt to stage a drama based on Harriet Beecher Stowe's 1852 novel Uncle Tom's Cabin, with his friends Minnie Mouse, Horace Horsecollar, Clarabelle Cow, and Goofy. Horace Horsecollar takes on the role of Simon Legree, the white slave owner, while Minnie plays Eva, the young white girl. Clarabelle plays Eliza, the slave woman. Mickey plays Uncle Tom, and Goofy helps them as the production hand. The short begins with Clarabelle and Mickey applying blackface. Mickey blows up a dynamite to blacken his face, and Clarabelle smears soot on herself. Though we don't get to see much of Uncle Tom's Cabin, the short focuses on the efforts and antics of the characters to stage the drama. In the end, they're all pelted by tomatoes. Goofy pops his head out and is promptly met with a thrown chocolate pie, which leaves him looking suspiciously similar to blackface. If that wasn't enough, Mickey is a canonical homophobe. We're talking about the Mickey Mouse comic strip from January 1931, where Mickey Mouse sees the house of catnip, in front of which is a board warning everyone of danger, as the toughest guy in the country lives there. Mickey, who was over-inquisitive, is overtaken by curiosity and he decides to trespass, hoping to take a look at the tough guy. A big burly guy comes out and Mickey begins to stutter, asking him whether he's the gentleman who lives in the house. The big cat is then drawn as the most exaggerated gay stereotype during those days, complete with a limp wrist, a lisp, and an effeminate pose. He says he's just the baker's boy who bringeth goodieth to Nip. Mickey then kicks the guy, telling him that he has a goodie for Nip, the big cream puff inhaler. For starters, the comic is not very funny, and seems like an excuse for the artist to gay bash in their comics. And what cream puff inhaler really means, we'll leave to your discretion and imagination. The most bizarre plot of Mickey Mouse ran from October 8 to October 20, 1930, where Mickey was rejected by Minnie Mouse and decided to take his own life. Yes, Mickey was aimed at kids, and yes, Mickey was suicidal for a solid 10 days. The story arc was inspired by Haunted Spooks, a 1920 horror comedy where the protagonist tries numerous ways to kill himself but fails. Cartoonist Floyd Gottfredson was the only voice of reason and questioned Disney's decision, telling him that the syndicate, the editors, or the readers were likely to object. Disney insisted it would be hilarious, and nobody batted an eyelid, not even the editors. Mickey tries various ways too. He tries to hang himself, tries to jump off a bridge to his death, poison himself, but nothing works, and in the end, some woodland animals tell him that the world is not so bad, convincing him to give up his deadly intentions. The storyline probably influenced the very famous creepypasta, suicidemouse.avi. The urban legend goes that Walt Disney himself made the short, but it was never released to the public. Leonard Maltin, the curator of the Disney Treasures collection, came across this clip when he was reviewing old cartoons. He was surprised to find the old cartoon titled Suicide Mouse and decided to put it up on his PC. The first 3 minutes were normal and had Mickey walk across a landscape and suddenly turn black. After 3 more minutes, the clip reappeared, but this time with no fun music and the sound of a gurgled cry. As Mickey walked, the sidewalk too moved along with him. Suddenly a sharp cry began and Mickey's eyes began to melt, with his smile getting sinister. The buildings began to rot and blurred into a swirling mess. By the end of the video, the landscapes reappear and Mickey climbs a building and jumps down. As blood oozes out of his corpse, a sign reads that the sights of hell would bring viewers back. The legend says that Maltin couldn't watch the entire cartoon and sent an intern to watch it and make notes. The intern killed himself after watching it. Some employees decided to put it up on YouTube with a warning, but YouTube removed it and they were fired. There's obviously not an ounce of truth in this story, but you have to admit that if you heard it before high school, it would have entertained the hell out of you. Coming back to the wacky storylines that did exist, did you know that Mickey Mouse was once addicted to drugs? This was in the 1950s, and the ill effects of drugs were not as well known as they are now. Use of drugs for recreational stimulation was widely accepted and crept into a Mickey Mouse comic. In a 1951 Mickey Mouse comic, Mickey and Goofy get addicted to Peppo, a brand of speed or methamphetamine. They like Peppo so much that they become brand ambassadors of the drug in Africa, earning the ire of a local drug dealer whose specialty was hash. A storyline could be incorporated into a gritty action film, and I wouldn't be surprised. While these are all the offensive storylines by today's standards, censor boards in 1930 were offended by a completely different reason. The Shindig, a Mickey Mouse short from 1930, shows Clarabelle reading 3 Weeks, an erotic novel written by Eleanor Glynn in 1907. Though 3 Weeks was a very popular book, it was also extremely controversial. Even the sight of it left authorities in Ohio scandalized and they banned the short. This wouldn't be the last encounter Clarabelle had with the censor board. Many viewers wrote complaints to the Motion Picture Producers and Directors of America that Clarabelle's design was obscene as she had huge udders. They were also horrified to see the udder move about when the character moved, and panted when she was standing still after strenuous activity. In 1931, Disney complied and enacted a rule that said that the udders in the cartoon would no longer be as gargantuan as previously seen. Instead, they would be drawn either very small or totally invisible. Mickey Mouse was a global icon, which meant that the naysayers were not just American. In 1935, the Romanian government decided to ban Mickey Mouse, as they believed that the big mouse would scare their children. Nazi Germany banned the cartoon as they thought that mice were the most abhorrent creatures and were responsible for health crises. Mickey Mouse, according to them, idealized mice. Germany was also not very happy that in the Barnyard Battle, a 1929 short, the opposing cat militia wore uniforms similar to German military. They considered it a personal attack on Germany and banned the cartoon for hurting national sentiments. Another creepy Mickey Mouse cartoon was The Mad Doctor of 1933, which can be simply described as nightmare fuel. The titular Mad Doctor kidnaps Mickey's dog Pluto to cut his neck and attach his head to the body of a chicken. In order to see whether a dog would hatch out of a chicken egg, Mickey tries to rescue Pluto and ends up strapped to a bed. As the doctor tries to cut him open, Mickey faints. When he wakes up, he realizes that it was all just a bad dream. The cartoon was made to satirize popular horror movies, but the creators clearly forgot which audience they were making it for. Many theaters refused to show it as it was so scary, and the UK banned it altogether. When a character becomes incredibly popular, there's a weird need for people to represent it in media not commonly associated with it. Let me be clearer. Since Mickey is a kid's cartoon, people feel the need to incorporate him into adult content. There's also Rule 34 of the internet, which says that anything that exists is bound to have porn of it without exceptions. This horrifically came true for Mickey in 1971 when artist Dan O'Neill wrote a comic book called Air Pirates Funnies, where Mickey Mouse smuggles drugs and performs oral sex on Minnie. O'Neill was promptly slapped with a copyright infringement suit, which he lost. As he could not afford to pay the huge amount of damages, O'Neill promised to never draw Mickey again, and Disney was satisfied. Unfortunately, Disney was soon going to lose copyright over the mouse. In 2004, Mickey Mouse would have been entering the public domain, so they pushed to extend the copyright term and were able to gain 20 years. Disney lobbied for the Copyright Term Extension Act so hard that it's also known as the Mickey Mouse Protection Act. But 20 years soon passed by in a breeze, and Mickey Mouse was up for grabs for all and sundry. There were only 2 rules if you wanted to use Mickey Mouse in your own art project. You cannot use the new versions of Mickey Mouse, and you must limit yourself to the early Steamboat Willie version. You must not use Mickey in a way that can fool consumers into thinking that your work was produced or sponsored by Disney. Follow these 2 rules and you can go crazy. Just like Winnie the Pooh was used in horror movies, as soon as he set foot in the public domain, Mickey too began to be incorporated in slasher and horror movies. Our opinion on this matter is that it's a mindless cash grab without a doubt. Since Mickey's entry into the public domain in 2024, there have been so many movies like The Mousetrap, Mouse of Horrors, and Screamboat. The 2024 Canadian supernatural slasher The Mousetrap was the first usage of Mickey in a commercial horror film. Directed by Jamie Bailey and written by Simon Phillips, the movie follows Tim Collins, a manager at an arcade who gets hypnotized by the original Steamboat Willie cartoon to dress as Mickey Mouse and go on a killing spree. Not a very creative slasher plot, and it's kind of sad to see Mickey Mouse being used as a band-aid for lack of original stories. This trend is continued in Mouse of Horrors, a 2025 horror directed by Brendan Petrizzo, where a mad scientist creates a monstrous mutated rat that attacks friends trapped in an amusement park, and Screamboat, Stephen Lamort's horror flick, where a ferry ride in New York City takes a tragic turn after the passengers are attacked by a mean mouse. If this trend continues, there's definitely a good chance that future generations will start associating this character with the horror genre. Marvelous verdict. Mickey Mouse is a celebrity in his own right, and like all celebrities, he's not without the controversies that plague him. Did we leave out any major incidents that landed Mickey Mouse and his creators in hot water? If yes, let us know in the comments below. We'll soon be back with more amazing content. But until then, take care and goodbye. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.